Every night at 3:03 someone or something passes by my house whistling. Every night, regardless of the weather, someone or something passes by our street, quietly whistling. You can hear this whistle only from the living room or the kitchen, when it passes by, and always exactly at 3:03. The sound is barely audible somewhere at the beginning of the alley near the Carson house. We live closer to the middle of the street, so the whistle passes by us, and then subsides at a dead end. When my sister and I were younger, we sometimes went to the kitchen to listen. Our parents did not approve of this, and we got it well, if they caught us. But still, they did not punish us too much, because we always followed the main rule not to try to see who is whistling. In general, our area is a rather strange place. I have been living here for 6 years and I love it very much. The houses are small, but well-groomed, everyone has decent yards, there is a place to walk. There are a lot of guys my age here. In October I turned 13. We all grew up together, played on the street, in the summer evenings we ran to each other on the porch. In short, this is a good place to spend your childhood here. I'm already old enough to understand this. There are only 2 oddities here, a night whistle and incredible luckiness. The whistle didn't bother me much, as I said, I don't even hear it in my room. But Mom and Dad don't like to talk about it, so I stopped asking questions. My father is a strong, tall and very calm person. He speaks with an accent, because he moved to the USA as a child. His family, my grandmother and grandfather, are from the islands, they say so themselves. And the only time my father loses his calm is when he talks about the whistle. He starts talking faster, his gaze becomes restless. And he repeats to us so that we don't think too much about it. And always remember one main rule. Do not try to look outside when the whistle passes by. Even if we wanted to look, we still wouldn't be able to. You see, we have special blinds installed on all windows from the inside. Tight pieces of heavy fabric that go down from above and are fixed at the bottom of the frame. Each latch, in addition, is locked with a tiny lock. You know, some diaries have such locks. Before going to bed, my father closes the blinds every night and takes the key to his room. What about my mother? I don't know what she thinks about the whistle. When it was just getting started, I noticed her in the living room at 3:03. I saw her through a tiny gap from the open door. She doesn't come there often, at least I rarely caught her. But once or twice a month, it seems that she sits on our big red sofa and just listens. The whistle always sings the same melody. And it's funny. Whistle always sings the same melody. And it's funny. Remember, I said that there are 2 oddities in our area? Well, in addition to the night whistle, all the residents of our district are still happy. It's hard to explain, and my father doesn't like it when we talk about it. But people here are just constantly lucky. Usually, luck is related to something small. Winning a contest on the radio, unexpected promotion at work, accidental finding of ancient arrow tips in the garden. Like ancient and valuable. The weather here is always good, there are no crimes. And in the fall, people's gardens bloom especially brightly. A million little blessings. That's what my mother once said about life here. But the main reason why we stayed here, why we moved here at all, is my sister Nola. She was born very sick, she has something with lungs. We couldn't even take her home after giving birth, we only visited the hospital. She was very tiny, even compared to other babies. The machine breathed instead of her. We moved to this house to be closer to the hospital. And as soon as we settled here, Nola got better. Doctors couldn't explain it, wrote everything off for treatment. But it was clear that they didn't fully understand what was going on. But the parents knew, even I knew. Improving Nola was another one of the million little blessings that our district gives us. That's why we stayed, even when we found out that for every little miracle that happens here, sometimes you have to pay for some bad events. But it only happens in one case, if you try to see a whistle. There is a kind of welcoming committee in our district. When someone new moves into our district, they come to people with pastries from Pasta, a gift basket and a yellow folder with documents. They are very friendly. When we moved 7 years ago, 4 people came to us. They chatted a little, treated me to Snickers and, in turn, held Nola in their arms. It was her first week out of the hospital, so they treated her very carefully. Then they asked me to talk to the parents in private and sent me to the room. But even from there, I was able to eavesdrop on almost everything. The committee told the parents about how wonderful our district is. So cool that it's even difficult to express it in words. And then they started talking about another thing, which is even more difficult to explain. About the night whistle. It sounds exactly at 3.03 every night. And it stops exactly at 3.05. Our new neighbors assured their parents that this whistle is quiet, that it will never harm us, as long as we do not try to see its source. They especially emphasized this point. Our new neighbors assured their parents that this whistle is silent, that it will never harm us, as long as we do not try to see its source. They particularly emphasized this moment, and I pressed my ear to the door so as not to miss a word. Those who tried to see the whistle stopped whistling. Sometimes it ended tragically. A black cloud hung over such people. Everything that could go wrong, went wrong. In the yellow folder that the members of the committee brought, there were newspaper clippings with stories about car accidents, destroyed lives, public deaths, and strange accidents. Not everyone dies, I heard the head of the committee say to my father. But life goes out of them. Even if they survive, they no longer have a light. They seem to be no longer present in our world. I realized that my mother did not take all these words seriously. She continued to ask if they were playing some kind of joke on the new neighbors. At some point, she even got angry, blamed the committee for trying to scare us and force us to leave. And she asked if it was because my father was from the islands. My father calmed her down, said that he saw that our new neighbors were sincere people and just wanted to help. He explained that he grew up on such stories that his mother told him. And that he knows that there are sometimes strange creatures among us. Some of them are kind, some are evil, and some are just different. After the committee left, my father went to the grocery store. He bought dense fabric roll-ups, zippers, and locks. And after dinner, he installed them on every window in the house. On the first night in our new house, I left the room at 3 a.m. and saw that my father was not sleeping. He sat on the sofa in the living room and held my younger sister in his arms. My father put his finger on his lips, indicating that I should be silent. But he patted the sofa next to him. I sat down, and we began to wait. Exactly at 3:03, we heard a whistle. It started and ended exactly as the neighbors said. The whistle comes back every night, but we never try to see who blows it. And we continue to enjoy millions of little blessings. Nola now breathes independently. She grew up, became a strong and smart girl. My father joined the welcoming committee. New residents appear rarely because who would want to leave here? But when someone moves in, my father and the committee bring them pastries from Pasta, a gift basket, and a yellow folder. In the face of my father, I always understand whether the new neighbors have taken the warning seriously, or if soon we will have to meet someone again. Recently, a new family settled right next to us. The former hostess, Miss Maddie, died at the age of 105. She lived a long, good life. Our new neighbors seemed to fit perfectly into the area. They believed the committee, followed my father's advice about the locks, especially since they had a small child. No matter what newspaper clippings lay in that yellow folder, my father never showed them to us. But apparently, they were very convincing, because in the first month, the new neighbors did not have any problems. Recently, a new family settled right next to us. The former hostess, Miss Maddie, died at the age of 105. She lived a long and good life. Our new neighbors seemed to fit perfectly into the area. They believed the committee, followed the advice of the father about the lockers, especially since they had a small child. Whatever newspaper cutouts were in that yellow folder, the father never showed them to us. But apparently they were very convincing, because in the first month, the new neighbors did not have any problems. One evening, when our new neighbors left the city, their son Holden stayed with us for the night. He was 12, he studied in a class a year younger than me. Before that night, I almost didn't know him, but as soon as his parents left him with us after dinner, I immediately realized that a bad evening was waiting for us. "Do you know who whistles there every night?" asked Holden, as soon as the adults left the room. The three of us were sitting in the living room, and some Disney movie was playing on the TV. My sister and I looked around. "We don't talk about it," I said. "I think it's that strange guy from the big yellow house in the corner," said Holden. "Mr. Tolles?" Nola clarified. "Yeah, well, he's good." Holden shook his shoulders. "So it's some kind of killer maniac." Nola got tense. "We don't talk about it," I repeated. "Let's go to my room, let's play Nintendo." We spent a few hours playing video games, eating popcorn and watching movies. The most ordinary children's night. But I noticed that Holden didn't sit still. After our parents wished us a good night, locked the bedside table and went to bed, Holden got up from his bag chair and came up to us with Nola, sitting on my bed. "Have you ever tried to look?" he asked me. "It's almost time." Like any night, we jointly ignored the idea that it was time for us to go to bed. I was surprised to notice that he was right. It was almost 3 o'clock. I sighed. "Me. You see, I can't even try." Holden interrupted me. "My father locks the bedside table every night, and hides the key from them." What did Nola say? "No," said Holden. "He doesn't hide it." "You saw how he does it," I said a little earlier than planned. Holden smiled. "Yes, he locks the bedside table, but he doesn't hide the key. He keeps it on his usual bundle of keys." "So?" I asked, although I already understood what he was leading to. Because I myself noticed that my father no longer forced himself to hide the key. He knew that after so many years we understood everything and took it seriously. "So, when your father closed the bedside table, but before the parents went to bed, I went to the bathroom, and along the way, perhaps, I looked into their room, and perhaps I saw your father's keys on his bedside table, and perhaps I owed them to him." Nola and I looked at him, and his smile became even wider. "You're lying," I said. Holden shook his shoulders. "You can check if you want. Just open the door to the parents' bedroom and look. You'll see his bundle right on the bedside table." "Stay here," I told both of them. "And don't move." I hurried to the parents' room, but froze in front of the door. If Holden didn't lie, my father would be angry. Not just angry, but furious. I was scared at the thought of it. But it was even scarier to imagine an open window with a mysterious whistle right behind it. I opened the door just a little and looked inside, but it was too dark to see anything. Taking a deep breath, I stepped into the room. 2 steps into the dark, and I froze. I heard a whistle, and now I heard it clearly from the parents' room. I never thought about it, but it turns out they heard this sound every night since we moved into this house. They never talked about it. I don't think I could sleep knowing it was so close. I stood there, listening to the whistle coming closer, not knowing what to do. Should I turn on the light or wake up my father? The quiet sounds from the living room brought me back to reality. I yelled Nola and rushed out of the parents' room. Holden and Nola stood by the front door next to the window. Holden didn't lie. I saw him running around with a lock on one of the shutters. A click was heard. He really had a key. Holden quietly laughed. Nola stood next to him, hunched over. She was scared, but at the same time she seemed to be curious. The whistle was heard right behind the walls of our house. I think I shouted something or made some kind of sound, I don't remember. The time froze. The clock hands seemed to be nailed to the dial. Well, I'm already moving. I'm not fast at all and I've never done sports, but somehow I covered the distance between me and Nola for a moment. Without taking my eyes off her, I heard Holden pulling the curtain down so that it opened. I heard a click with which she began to rise, and a whistle right on the other side of the window. But I already grabbed Nola by the hands, turned us around so that she looked towards the corridor, not the window. At the same moment, I closed my eyes, and the curtains suddenly flew up. The whistle broke. I felt Nola trembling in my hands. "Don't look, okay?" Ga said. "Don't turn around." We were standing so that she was turned to the corridor, and I to the window. But my eyes were still closed. I hugged her tighter. I reached out my free hand, trying to touch Holden. My fingers touched his hands. He trembled even more than Nola. "Holden?" I called him. Silence. I reached out further, carefully put my palm on the glass, without opening my eyes. It was cold. Too cold for this time of year. I held my hand higher, trying to find the cord from the blind. The glass under my fingers became warmer, and at the same time I felt a light hum, giving off in the tips of my fingers. I tried not to think about what could be on the other side of the window. Finally, I found the cord and pulled it down. The shutters clanked. I opened my eyes. In the faint light breaking through the kitchen, I looked at Holden. He was pale, small, as if he were choking. He just looked at the closed window. "Holden?" I called him again. He slowly turned to me and screamed. Then a storm of events began. The light lit up in the corridor, then in the living room. Parental steps flooded the wooden floor. I did not turn to their side, as I could not take my eyes off Holden. He was as white as a wall, and he bit his lip so hard that a thin blue line of blood flowed down his chin. And he also got wet. "What happened?" my father asked behind my back. I barely turned around, finally taking my eyes off Holden. He looked. I have never seen my father frightened. But at that moment I saw a sinister horror, parental horror, reflected on his face. "Only he?" my father asked silently with one lip. I nodded. My father exhaled. In a second he turned so that I even thought that he would laugh at the relief now. But then he looked at Holden, and the expression on his face immediately changed. I wondered if he felt guilty for experiencing this feeling of joy. A knock on the door opened. We froze. Holden snorted. "Don't open," said Mom. She stood in the hallway. I always thought that she was skeptical about this whole story, just supporting her father. But that night we all believed, for sure. I noticed that both Mom and Dad had baseball bats in their hands. They seemed to have come out of their bedrooms with them. The knock was repeated, now it was a little louder. Now he was a little louder. "Please, don't open," Holden whispered. Father came up to him and hugged. "We won't open," he promised, squeezing the beat harder. "Nothing will enter this house tonight." Now the blows were so strong that the door trembled. Holden screamed again. Nola clung to me. Mom ran up and hugged us both. "Call the police," Mother whispered to her father. The knock stopped instantly. Father looked at us through the shoulder. "Do you think?" He started, but he was interrupted by a new knock. First, a powerful blow, then a polite, measured knock knock knock. "The police," said someone behind the door. This voice, it sounded just like Mom's. It was like a parrot repeating her words. "Police. Call the police. Police." Mom pressed us harder to herself. "Police. Police. Police. Please stop," she whispered. "I don't think a call to the police will help us," said the father. "How do we know that it's them knocking on the door?" The knock returned again, stronger than before. The door trembled, then everything froze. A long pause hung, and then we heard a new knock. Now to the back door. We all turned around, but as soon as our heads turned to the side of the black entrance, the knock spread again in front. Front door, then back, then front again. Loud, then quiet, then loud again. And suddenly both entrances began to shake at the same time. The blows became massive and heavy, as if someone had bitten into the tree with a sledgehammer. And then knocking on all the windows at once. On the walls. As if we were inside a drum, and dozens of drummers began to play their own rhythms from all sides. Or as if we were a turtle, and something was trying to pull us out of the shell. "Enough," shouted Holden. The knock froze. "I won't tell," he whispered, not taking his eyes off the door. "I promise I won't tell anyone what I saw. Just go away." We waited almost a minute, and then we heard this soft, gentle knocking from the window, into which Holden looked. He snorted, and expressed uncontrollable, hysterical sobbing, like a prisoner watching his hangman being built right under his window. Father hugged him tightly, waved his fingers on his scruffy hair, but did not lie to him, did not say that everything would be fine. The quiet knock on the window continued all night. We got together in the living room and sat there, I don't even know how long. At some point, my mother tried to take us, the children, to my room, and my father stayed to guard the door. But as soon as we crossed the threshold of the bedroom, the knock returned. Strong, loud, muffling everything around. I was afraid that the door would simply not stand it. We immediately returned to the living room. The knock stopped. Only a light knock remained in the window. None of us fell asleep. Finally, the knock stopped at about 7 a.m. At about this time, the sun rises in our area. We waited another 2 hours before my father decided to open one of the shutters. But first he told us all to go to their bedroom. I heard him open the front door, then closed it and returned. "Okay," he said, "it's over." Holden's parents returned closer to noon. Mom and Dad took him home and spent a lot of time with his family in the house. Nola and I watched them from the window. She did not step away from me, periodically held my hand. When the parents returned, they looked gloomy, but never told what they were talking about with Holden's family. It was a Sunday. We spent it together, ordered pizza, watched movies. That night we all slept in my room. Nola and Mom in bed next to me, Dad in the chair that pulled closer to us. There was no more knocking, neither that night nor any other. We hardly saw Holden or his parents the whole next week. But on Thursday, a truck appeared in front of their house. After school, we watched all day how they packed their things. But most of all I remembered their look, Holden and his parents. All three had the same expression on their faces, exhausted, faded, gray with empty eyes. Even being on the other end of the street, I could say that something was wrong with them. Far from it. By sunset, Holden and his family were gone. I remembered what the welcoming committee said to my parents on the night of the move. Not everyone who saw the whistle dies, but even if they survive, the light in them goes out. And then their life is just a series of small tragedies. I think Holden's parents also looked at him. Maybe to calm him down, if they didn't believe. Or maybe to share a knife with him, if they still believed. Now I look at Nola, small, cheerful, alive. And I think, what if I intervened? What if she had time to look? And if I looked too? To calm her down? To share this knife with her? I'm glad I didn't have to check. We still live in this house, in this area. We still hear this whistle, how it passes by every night. But luck, blessings and good miracles are too attractive here to leave this place. Therefore, we behave carefully. We no longer call friends for the night. And the father now hides the key from Stavny very, very carefully. And not that I would like to know where he hides it. Some things just shouldn't be known.